I like to take you behind the scenes, way behind the scenes. I was behind the scenes in the denomination that ordained me, and I got to see glimpses of high-level leadership up close and personal. So I knew that the enemy was all up in the church, in the leadership. I knew this. I did not know that it was across the board in every denomination. I mean, I only knew the denomination I was in, but it's across the board, every place, in leadership positions. And as they always say, everything trickles down. It trickles down from the level of leadership. But I want to go way behind the scenes. I'm remembering a dream that I had when I was still in the institutional church, and I misunderstood the dream. I saw all of the church leadership sitting up on a high stage. Now that was quite symbolic, because in the denomination I was in, there was a whole lot of pride and a whole lot of fronting. Lots of robes, the whole thing. I mean, I'm all that in a bag of chips attitude of leadership. So, I knew that, things were dirty on the inside. But in this dream that I had, I saw us all up on this platform that we always was on a platform. I saw everybody on the platform. And I was on the platform there with them. So was the bishop. And a great wind came, like a hurricane, and knocked about 3/4 of the people off the stage. It was a very high stage. I guess it's like the opera or something. High stage. Theater. And the few that were still on the stage got up and looked down. Some folk were flat out dead. Others could barely move. Others were getting up and kind of dusting themselves off. Those of us that were still on the stage were ready to run down and help the ones that were salvageable. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, no, Pam. Do not go help them. This is my judgment. And I said, whoo. I thought that dream was just talking about that denomination. The Lord brought that dream back to mind years later when I was out of the institutional church. And he said, even though those in that dream were from that denomination, they were just actors on a symbolic stage representing the entire harlot, the entire institutional church, that many are going to fall dead and others are going to be salvageable, but not all that many. So he let me know, don't you go running and doing anything. This is my judgment. There were other experiences. I heard his voice talking to me and telling me about his judgment. So all that was personal to me, and it was about everybody. So what I say to people is, if you don't believe me, go to the Lord yourself and ask him if what I'm saying to you is the truth. But what I'm here to say to you is this. This thing is not new. The institutional church been around here since its inception in 313 AD. founded by the Roman Emperor Constantine, y'all. So, okay, it's been around here for a while. By the time we get to the 1500s, the God's people rose up out of the Catholic Church in what is known as the Protestant Reformation, led by Martin Luther. And Martin Luther had come out boldly and said the Pope is the Antichrist. Later on, after Luther, in the 1700s, towards the end of it, a connection was made between Daniel's prophecy as to when the Antichrist would come forward, and it all seemed to tie in to the Pope and the papacy as the spirit of the Antichrist. So what happened in the 1500s? In order to put a stop to the Reformation that they could not stop, a Catholic Jesuit, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but tongue is getting Jesuit, by the name of Francesco Ribera. He got clever. And he said, I'm going to draw away, all of this attention to the Pope or the papacy as the Antichrist. And I'm going to develop a brand new scenario that draws everybody's attention away from the Pope. And that is how the doctrine of the rapture was founded. By the fantasy and the pulling out of select scriptures to create a scenario that would put the Antichrist into a far-off generation. That we, like fools, be sitting around trying to figure out who he be. When the believers in the 1500s had their fingers pointed to the Pope and used Daniel's prophecy to do so. And what did we end up with? The rapture. That's how that particular false doctrine was formed. So what I'm saying to you now, when we go behind the scenes, is that the enemy has been working for centuries to pull this thing all together. For centuries. And so, what the prophet, we don't think of him as a prophet, but he was a prophet. The prophet Paul said to Timothy, I don't even know if Paul himself knew he was prophesying. But he wrote to Timothy, some shall depart from the faith in the latter days, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Their conscience shall be seared like a hot iron. All right. That's happened. Not just now. Don't you know in some Assembly of God churches, if you do not preach the rapture, you will lose your congregation? That's how it be. That's how it be. It's a done deal.